Adam here from Young Shrewsbury, here for this week's cook along, and we're going to do a fakeaway, an old classic from the Chinese. We're going to make a chicken chow mein, okay? Real simple dish, takes about 10-15 minutes to make, but the key to any kind of stir-fry noodle dish is to prep everything before you start cooking. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to prep the actual chicken itself. So we're going to marinate it in some garlic, some chili, some ginger and some chili. Okay, so first things first is to get all of that chopped. So we've got our ginger. I'm just going to take the edges off it, like so. You want about a piece about the size of your thumb. All right, just going to take the edges off here and here. And then if you cut it into strips first of all, long pieces like that, and then into matchsticks. I've not done that very well. Take your time with this, okay? I'm going quite quick, but I do a lot of cooking. I want to make sure that you guys don't chop your fingers off. Do it with an adult if you need to, okay? Cutting it all into matchsticks, just nearly got it all done there. And then I'm going to throw that bit away because we've got plenty there. And then I'm just going to go across those matchsticks so we get these nice little, tiny little kind of cubes, I guess, of ginger. Again, take your time with this. All right, you could use a crusher if you want. Then you can do the seesaw method over the top to chop it up. Okay, that goes into a bowl. Okay, next up, go for the chili. I like it nice and hot, so I'm going to leave the seeds in. You guys could always take them out. Okay, there's only a couple of seeds in there anyway. So I chopped the top off, chopped it in half lengthways, and again, into matchsticks. So long, 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 watch your fingers as you go. All the way along. One more. And then again, across those matchsticks into little pieces, like this. Using that seesaw method is the best way to get it nice and small. Scoop that up into your bowl. Next, garlic. These are real classic Chinese flavours, Asian flavours. They're going to bring loads of life to this dish. So we're going to go for 3 cloves of garlic today. There's 4 there. So as always, if you've been watching for a long time, take your cloves, side of the knife, palm of your hand, pop, pop, crush it, and then you'll find it just peels super easy. Second one. Get rid of these papery bits because they're nasty if you get them in your dinner. Just peel that third one. Popping them not only helps you to peel them, but also bruising it makes all the flavour come out of the garlic too. So it's a double whammy of goodness. Right, and then we're just going to chop that into sort of rough pieces to start with, and then use the seesaw method again, just to chop that down nice and fine. Again, you don't want huge pieces of garlic in your mouth, but when it's chopped down fine and sort of melts into the dish, it's awesome. There's so much cool flavour. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, excellent. That's that in there. Now we're going to move to the chicken, so I'm just going to take that there. I'm going to switch from this white board over to the red board. The red board is for raw meat, okay? You don't want to be mixing up raw meat with boards where you might be cutting salad or something like that, because you could make yourself really sick. Cross-contamination is really important. So use a separate board, or really, if you haven't got a separate board, clean the board you were using really, really well before and after using the meat on it, okay? So I've got 2 chicken breasts here. I'm just going to slice them up into really sort of quite thin discs, first of all, across the breast. So all the way across. You want to come in and have a look at that for me, Tash. Okay. So just slicing right way across, nice and thin. This will cook really fast that way. Okay, if you have big chunks chicken, it's going to take longer to cook. So same this way. nice thin slices all the way along. Get your fingers out of the way. Alright. Okay, and if you want to, you can cut those in half again. If they're really big, or the bigger bits, you can slice in half again. So you kind of get these little slivers of chicken. I kind of like doing it like this because everything else is going to be kind of that shape when we chop the vegetables. And so when you get a mouthful, you're trying to get a little bit of everything. And if one thing's really big, you're only going to get that in your mouthful. Whereas if you can get a bit of chicken and a bit of carrot and a bit of pak choi and, you know, a bit of the sweet corn all in one fork, you're going to get more of a taste sensation in your mouth. All right, I'm going to keep slicing these down the middle. There's a couple left to do, maybe one more. That should be good. Right, chicken's also nicely sliced, nice and thin, even. That's the other thing, make sure that it's all the same size so it will cook at the same rate. That chicken goes into your ginger, your chilli and your garlic. Okay, now just need to wash my hands because I'm touching the raw meat very quickly. And then we're going to just take some dark soy sauce. I should have opened the packet before we started videoing this. Oops. Come on, Adam. There we go, we've got there in the end. So we're going to go for about a tablespoon of soy sauce. Now soy sauce is really salty, so this is essentially seasoning that chicken. Maybe 2 tablespoons. I can never really tell by just jugging it out, but I've used that much of the bottle, if that helps. Right. Then some sesame oil. Give this a sniff. Smells absolutely amazing, this stuff. It's really Chinesey, you know, it's going to give us loads of flavour, but it's also going to help these to fry. Okay, so I'm going to go for about a tablespoon of oil as well. Alright, and then just get a spoon and just mix all of that up together. Now we're doing this first because this is going to give it a few minutes to marinate whilst we chop the rest of the veg. So get it all mixed up like that and leave it to one side. Now I'm going to chop the rest of our vegetables, so I'm going to get rid of my breadboard, clean my knife, and we're going to go back to our veggie board. Okay, so this is called pak choi. It's like a Chinese style, sort of like a lettuce, I suppose. The bottom half, I'm going to chop the bottom off. Bottom half, you'll see, it's almost like celery. It's quite thick, okay, quite chunky. So in order for that to stir fry, we're going to cut it into thin strips, like that, across the base. We're going to do that all the way up what we call the neck of the pak choi until we get the start of the leaves, which is here. And then those leaves, I'm just going to leave, I'm going to maybe go down the middle, like that, but they're going to be quite loose, they're going to give us some nice variance. Now these bits are going to cook, going to need to fry a bit like the pepper, very crunchy, very tasty. These bits will wilt a bit like spinach. Okay, next, pepper, the usual trick. So think 2 thumbs on the top, pop, rip, okay, taking your middle out the pepper, give it a little tap and the extra seed's gone, like that. And then I'm just going to slice that into nice thin strips. Okay, all the way along. Again, we're going for the same kind of shape as the chicken was in. Long, thin pieces. And if everything's the same kind of shape, the same thickness, it should cook in around about the same amount of time. That's the theory anyway. Okay, so we've got our peppers done. Now we've just got a big mushroom. You might have different shaped mushrooms to this, but again, I'm just going to cut these into thin strips, just like everything else. Right across the middle. It's kind of nice to get some nice big bit of mushroom in there if you like mushrooms. If you don't put them in. It's that simple. Okay, so slicing that up. Mushrooms chopped. Board's getting quite full now. But we've got carrot. So with my carrot, I tend to like to take the top off and then at an angle, slice it into thin strips like that. So you end up, if you need to cut the carrot quite thin, otherwise it's going to take a long time to fry, to cook. Okay. And if you want to, just like the chicken, you can take these, I'm going to take a wodge of them, like that, and just slice them down the middle again, so they end up like the same shape as everything else. So I'll do those to the rest of them. You can pick a few of them up together, save time. And it's got most of them done there. And then lastly, really pushing everything up to the top of the board now, we've got our spring onions. Okay, so a little bit like the pak choi, the top half is much different to the bottom half. The bottom half, if you just put them together, I'm just going to slice off, just make sure they're all together, look even, because I'm going to slice off those roots, get rid of those. And we're left with this white bit, okay? Now, the white bit needs to be sliced quite thinly, okay? We get halfway up the neck, like this, and then the top bits can be a bit like the pak choi leaves, because these are leafy, can be sliced a bit more loosely, because they'll take less time to cook. In fact, I'm going to put those with the pak choi leaves, because they'll go in right at the end and be nice and fresh. And there we have it. We've got all of our vegetables prepped. We have, there's some, make sure your tin of sweet corn's open as well, or frozen sweet corn is ready. So we've got everything prepped now to go over and cook it. Okay, right, we're ready to cook. So I've got a pan of water on the highest heat possible, and also I've had this pan, this wok or a large frying pan, on the highest heat possible for a while now. We're going to start by cooking the chicken. These noodles, which we're going to cook in the water, they'll probably take like 3 or 4 minutes. So start cooking the chicken now. By the time that water's boiling, they'll be probably ready to go in. You could have the water ready and cook. You don't want to cook the noodles for too long because they go really soft. You want to catch them when they're just cooked. So towards the end, so you could almost get the stir fry cooked if you want, and then cook the noodles and add them at the end, and the stir fry will be absolutely fine. Okay, so we've got our marinated chicken. There's oil already in there, so we don't need to put any oil in the pan whatsoever, but make sure the pan's nice and hot. I can actually see the smoke coming off that pan, which is really good, because stir frying should be a fast process, alright? So we're going to cook this chicken off, first of all. So hear that sound, that's how hot you need to get the pan, alright? Just going to cook that around. It smells amazing already. Keep moving that about until the chicken starts to look like it's cooking. That's great. Keep an eye on the boiling water. That is almost boiling now, so you're going to leave the chicken if you move the chicken around too much, it almost won't have a chance to brown, so just give it a few seconds, make sure every bit of it's touching the pan, and then we're just going to drop these noodles in to our pan of water. Hopefully I've got enough water in there, I probably should have put a bit more in. That's fine. Again, we're going to use more soy sauce at the end, so you don't need to add any salt. Okay? So, leaving that there, there's obviously quite a bit of liquid from the soy sauce, which what we want to do is really let that evaporate, and that's going to leave the saltiness and the flavour, but we're not going to end up with a really soggy kind of chow mein, because chow mein isn't like that. Right? So I'm just going to let that cook. I haven't stirred it, I haven't touched it. Let those chicken pieces cook on one. And you can see all that steam rising is the vapour from the soy sauce and some water in the chicken that's cooking off, and that's what we're going to intensify the flavours. Okay, I'm going to start moving it around a little bit. Okay, and almost all of that sauce has disappeared now. You can see there's hardly any liquid in the bottom. Some of it could be the oil, so just a little bit more in turn. You can see the chicken's still pink in places, try and turn it over. Okay, and then we're going to start adding in our veggies. So I'm going to go in with the onions or the bottom half of the onions, the white bit, and the carrots first of all. If you add them bit by bit, you don't lose too much heat in the pan. If I dump everything of that all in one go, the pan's going to actually reduce in heat massively, because you've put a load of cold stuff into a hot pan and it's going to cool it down. So if you add it in bit by bit with the things that take the longest to cook, you need to maintain the heat. You always want to have a nice high heat. Okay, these are boiling really hard now, so as soon as your noodles are starting to look like that, you can start to tease them apart. Okay, can you see how they've broken down really easily? Okay, so they'll only take a couple more minutes, and so will this. Right, so we go back in here. Right, it feels like we've maintained that heat. I'm going to go in now with my mushrooms next. Let those soak up some of those juices. which they will do. They're like little sponges, mushrooms. So if there's any excess juice, the mushrooms should soon see that away. Let's just cook those down for a second. Obviously, it looks like a lot of vegetables on the chopping board, but as you cook them, as you take all that moisture out of them by cooking them, they break down and they get smaller. You'll be surprised how much you can actually fit in the pan. That's almost going to overboil, so I'm going to turn the heat down. And I reckon those noodles can probably come off and just rest. I've only been cooking for like 2 minutes, but they'll stop overcooking if you take them off as soon as they feel soft. Okay, so we're stirring in those mushrooms now. You can see that they're starting to sort of change colour and soak up some of the juices that come out of the chicken and from the soy sauce. That's good. So now they've broken down, we're going to go in with the bottom half of the pak choi and the peppers. And right at the last minute we'll throw in those greens so they're really fresh and vibrant by the time you serve. Work that all in, give it time to break down. See how it's all kind of fitting in the pan as it has time to break down. Just keep stirring. It's called a stir fryer for a reason. You need to keep stirring it. Right? Keep moving that heat around. Get right to the bottom of the pan. Make sure whatever's on the bottom ends up on the top. Stirring it, moving it. Sometimes you can leave it for a minute or so if it feels like it's getting a bit cool from all the movement, but generally it's good to keep it moving. Don't have to cook for very long. So now I'm going to go in with the sweet corn, straight in, mix that through. Almost forgot about the sweet corn. There's loads of goodness in this, but it's going to taste delicious. Okay, seems to be losing heat for some reason. Oh no, we're back on. Okay, and then finally, as soon as that the sweet corn is heated through, because it's already cooked when it comes from a can particularly, you don't need to cook it really, it's just warming it through. We're going to go in with all of our greens. So that's the top of the spring onions and that pak choi top, or the leaves from the pak choi. And just as soon as they start to wilt, it's time to throw in the noodles. And once you get the noodles in, it's good to have 2 things that you can kind of tease them, because they are quite difficult to break down. So as soon as you see those greens start to turn, you'll just see now that they're just getting softer. The noodles are obviously really hot as well, so you don't want those greens to end up being sort of like grey. So you're going to catch this all at the last minute. So whilst they're still in there, they've just broken down enough to add in the noodles. Now strain these. I've left a tiny little bit of liquid in there, which is going to help make sure that everything's nicely sort of like moist in there. But the noodles go in. Okay, and on top of the noodles, I'm going to put a whole load more of the dark soy sauce. So this is a bit salty, but this is for 4 people, so it might look a lot. You're going to need that extra seasoning. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring that up to the boil. So you get your 2 implements, 2 spoons or whatever, and get underneath it, and you pull all of those vegetables and the chicken and everything through the noodles. So just keep working it like this, backwards and forwards. Whoops, we'll make a bit of a mess of the kitchen. But if you're cooking dinner, Mum's cleaning up, right? Hopefully. If you're cleaning up as well, then you're a saint. I don't do the washing up. I cook. Right. So that, everything is kind of mixed together. I'm quite happy with that. So, oops, just throw half it out of the pan. I think we are ready to serve. Excuse the mess, but a messy cook. Okay, now it's good to serve up. So again, try and use 2 implements, and the noodles are going to come long. So if you kind of grab a load of noodles, get those into the bowl first, and then the best thing to do then is just grab some toppings to go onto the top, because you never find it's very easy to get the toppings and the noodles together in one go. Oops. And then that way you can grab a bit more chicken than the next person as well, which is what I always do. Alright, and that's it really. So just make sure you don't make as much mess as me while you're doing it. There we have Chinese chicken chow mein. Dead easy, dead healthy, none of the rubbish they put in at the takeaway, and you'll feel satisfied that you've cooked it yourself. See you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your mates, and all that jazz. See you later.